Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared podcast.
Hey everybody, Mark and Steve on the PBSE podcast. This is episode 251. And you'll notice, I don't know, maybe someone think the title's maybe a little bit mildly sarcastic, or maybe it's serious, we're not sure. But it's really derived from a really awesome submission that a betrayed partner sent in to us. Right? Unless my partner is, quote, diagnosed as a, quote, addict, his porn use is not a problem. Right? So let's read what she submitted to us. She says, I want to thank you both from the bottom of my heart for everything you do. You work hard to share your invaluable knowledge with the world in a way that is both accessible and convenient. No one else does it like you, and I'm so incredibly grateful to have found PBSE and subsequently D2C, Dare to Connect. Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. We
Absolutely.
So here's what she submits to us. When my addict partner and I first started dating, we discussed what cheating was to us. We agreed at that time that we did not consider porn to be cheating. But then about a year later, I discovered his Reddit account, his Reddit thread. And when I actually saw with my own eyes what he was watching with regard to pornography, I felt in my soul and body that it was unfaithful behavior. I addressed this with him. He was surprisingly supportive and agreed that going forward, porn would be considered cheating in our partnership. Over the years, I've continued to discover porn and or risque content on a cyclical basis. I find it, he lies or denies, eventually comes clean, and is motivated to take action and to do better. He will do great work for a few weeks or sometimes months, and then eventually slip and fall back into it. Most recently, he found himself watching porn at work. He, quote, finally, close quote, got a therapist, but after just a few sessions, he began to complain that he didn't like the therapist and wanted to try something else. I signed us up for Dare to Connect. When I told him that I'd done that, he got angry and said he needs an actual diagnosis and for, quote, someone to specifically tell him that he has a problem, close quote. I was so angry. Can't he see that if he is unable to prevent himself from watching porn at work, that this is a problem? His slips happen every few months or so, and I think that's why he believes that this is not an addiction. So here's my big question. At what point do you consider porn use to be an addiction? To me, it seems like it's neither here nor there, as it's a behavior he has been unable to discontinue, no matter how infrequently it happens. I believe he needs support and tools to help navigate this habit, but it seems as though he believes not having a, quote, diagnosis means he doesn't have a problem.
Well, that is quite the submission. And yes, again, we do appreciate the kind words. So this subscriber is actually both in the she subscribes to the podcast, but she also attends our Dare to Connect program.
Yeah.
Which we thank her for and are grateful for, and would love to have you all come try that 2-week trial for that at daretoconnectnow.com. You can grab that anytime. Love to have you come and join us over there. But because she sent this through the podcast, we'll go ahead and we'll address it here. We also, of course, address those things live on the show as well. And this is not a new topic for us.
Mm-mm.
We have done similar podcasts to this in the past, although it's been quite a while since we've done this. But it does hit on an important problem that many of those, primarily guys, right? But also, although we do work with women too, it describes the dilemma that many quote unquote addicts or suspected addicts or partial addicts or porn users or whatever you want to call them, right? face, that they and their partners face in these early stages where the person struggling has not yet really come to grips or a full accounting of the significance of what's going on, either for them and or for their partnership. And Mark and I both can really relate to this. I'll out myself here. And I was, I guess you could say, maybe a quote unquote more far gone case. At the time I got into recovery, I was a therapist. I was licensed. Like, I had training in this area. Hell, I was actually running an addiction recovery group for chemical dependency at the time. Okay. That's, I have told the story before about my low point was, and where Brittany and I kind of really got serious about this was after a very difficult conversation that I had with her, where I had a great session with a client in my office at work. And right after, feeling the buzz of a great session, I'd said good things to them. They left my office with hope. I literally pulled up porn right on my work computer, and full knowing the risks I was taking with that professionally and otherwise. But I still had not bought in at that point in time to the idea that I had a quote unquote problem. Now, there were many reasons for that, but one of them definitely was I was unique, and I was unique because I was a therapist. And surely, Brittany, that's my wife's name. Surely, hun, I would know if I had a problem. I mean, I treat people for a living. Don't tell me I have a problem. I am, right. Every guy that struggles with an issue like this, we all have these kind of different layers of defense that sometimes we are trying to avoid the uncomfortable or abscond accountability, or maybe we are in a place of legitimate denial where we just have not yet recognized how significant the issue is for us and or the person that we're with, and or for the other things like work or whatever. And our cycle very much looks similar to what's being shared here. Brittany would share concerns, and I would come up with reasons why I wasn't in a quote unquote full blown addiction like everyone else, like she was saying. But the question I had to face was that really the issue? Very similar to what this guy is having to face, right? Okay, so does this meet the definition of addiction? Is that really the issue? And probably now, Mark, maybe this is a good time to just talk about, we're kind of segueing into it. Maybe we should just touch on briefly what an addiction is, right? Kind of the typical definition of one. How do you identify one? And some of those basics that we talk about with addiction.
Yeah, and you and I, we went through this ourselves over years. We have faced this a ton with so many. I mean, it's in the thousands of people that we've worked with now over 20 plus years. There is this tendency to go into this debate about, is this an addiction? Is this not an addiction?
Yes.
Right, and all the levels and sub levels of addiction. And is this just obsessive compulsive, or is it cross the line? Or is it just recreational? And you could endlessly debate what it is and what it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we could talk about, the diagnostic manual for addictions. Is this a literal process addiction like gambling and other things? But for us, the definitions become very simple over the years. Are you engaging in a behavior that has negative consequences of any kind? And despite those negative consequences, whether for you, for your partner, for your role as a parent, for your ability to be fully present and show up in your best self in all of your interactions in life, whatever the negative consequences are, do you continue in the behavior and you are unwilling or unable to stop it regardless of those negative consequences?
Yeah.
To me, that's an addiction. Call it a compulsion, call it an uncontrollable urge, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to come at that, but we invite everyone listening to be very careful not to get caught up in the semantics of that. Because as you said, Steve, addiction happens on a spectrum. There's lots and lots of different layers and levels of it. There's quite a number of professionals today in the world who consider it absurd to talk about pornography being addictive at all.
Yes.
Right? There are others who are very adamant about the fact that it's not only a process addiction, but creates a literal chemical addiction in the brain and in the body. So there's all sorts of opinions about that. The bottom line is it creating negative consequences of some kind for you or others? And despite those, do you continue to engage in it?
Yes.
Now, there's some very telling things in her submission about him, and I know this is from her perspective, but we're gonna go with what she's told us about this. She talks about the fact that he engages in certain behaviors that are very addiction indicators, very much addiction indicators or obsessive compulsive indicators, because he does it in cycles. She'll catch him. The evidence will appear. She'll play detective. He'll first lie and deny, very clear part of addiction or compulsion. He'll then come clean, and he'll then start, quote, doing good for a while. And then that wears off, and then he's back into the same behaviors, and now we rinse and repeat. Those are telltale signs of an absolute addiction compulsion scenario, right? That whole addiction. And we just finished doing an entire month in Dare to Connect on the addiction cycle and the addictive system, helping the guys that we work with to identify what that looks like for them. So a lot of what she indicates here shows that he is indeed in a place like that. And then, of course, what's shouted at you and me, Steve, was the increase in the risky behaviors. Yes. Now it's entered the workplace, and he's actually engaging in behaviors that could literally destroy he and his partner's financial situation and future. Yeah. So a lot of telltale signs, if you wanted to look at it that way.
I mean, it's a very well-known fact, if we talk about that for just a second, what Mark ended with there. Unless you work for a porn company,
right?
Virtually, and maybe even them, I don't know, but every company policy in existence that I have ever been made aware of, or anyone that I've ever talked to, has a zero tolerance policy for pornographic material in the workplace.
That's right.
Most workplaces, it's a one and done, meaning you're caught, you're out. That's it.
Yeah.
And so you really are playing Russian roulette with your career, your job, your whatever, and the risks only go up from there, right? Depending on what type of pornography you're watching, et cetera, et cetera. So like we started, at the beginning here, it's this, you have to look at this from that perspective of not getting caught up in those defense mechanisms. And you really have to approach this, right, from a line of vulnerability. In other words, you can call it whatever you want, right? Going to the semantics, call it an addiction, call it an issue, call it a blip, call it a whatever. Right. But whatever the label is, we don't identify in life. Problems are not best identified by giving them a label. Okay. Problems are best identified by focusing on the issues that they are causing.
Yes.
Right. That's how we label in our personal lives the gravity of something. No matter what, because, and we know, again, speaking to you addicts, we know that there are all sorts of reasons. We're addicts too. We know that there are all sorts of reasons and ways in which your brain can justify it, right? One of my big go-tos, well, it's not nearly as bad as this client that I'm working with. Well, maybe it's not. But simply because it's not as bad as that guy, does that not mean that it's problematic for you and for your marriage or your relationship? Right? Those are not related issues, right? Simply because it's not as far along the spectrum, or maybe it looks a little different or whatever. Each of us has to cultivate that willingness and vulnerability to be open to the idea that whatever I may think about this, especially when a partner's involved, whatever I may think about this, and however distorted or clear-minded my thinking may be, this is clearly impacting my partner. It's clearly impacting my relationship. And I have to ask myself some hard questions. One of those being, is it authentic for me to continue on in this behavior when it puts so many other pieces of my authenticity at risk?
Yeah. Yeah, because if we go down that list of what's happening in the relationship, first of all, it's destroying trust. You can see in her submission, and she uses some very powerful language that I hope that she shared this with him and that he's listening. She said she felt in her soul after her viewing on his Reddit thread what he was viewing in pornography. How many partners, Steve, have we worked with who were really unaware of the intense, I'm just going to call it dark, perverted, crazy nature of what their partners are looking at. And they didn't really know the reality of that until they saw it.
Yeah. And the impact to them of being exposed to it.
And them being exposed themselves, right?
Yes,
the images. But she says it was in my soul, I knew this was unfaithful behavior. And then it was interesting. He was surprisingly supportive at first. And how many times, Steve, have you and I experienced that in our addiction and addiction recovery? We kind of, I call it come to ourselves, where we're clear thinking, our higher self, right? Dr. Jekyll, not Mr. Hyde, is in the driver's seat. We can see what really is, and we're supportive. We're like, you know what? That makes sense. You're right. I'm going to now take the right steps and get serious about this. And he did for a while. And then what happened? Then she started playing detective. She would have to catch him. He would lie. He would deny. Then he would eventually come clean. And then he would again come to himself and admit that he probably should do something. And now we're in the cycle, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And she talks of every time that cycle repeats, it's a giant hit to the trust account in that relationship.
Yes. Well, and I love, one of the things we talked about before this starts, right? It impacts intimacy in some sort of way.
Hey, everybody. PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. And I remember, I'll be honest, I'll level with you all. I remember being, again, in this addiction state and thinking, well, it's not impacting our intimacy. We still have great sex. And we did.
Yes.
But was it impacting our intimacy? Absolutely. Maybe not necessarily physically, at least not at that point it wasn't, although I'm sure that wouldn't have taken much longer. But it was most definitely impacting our emotional intimacy on every level. Brittany was feeling less and less safe with me, feeling less and less connected to me. And can I add one more thing that's really vulnerable? She was less and less proud of being married to me. And that took both of us a long time, I think, to actually acknowledge and wrap our heads around, because that might have been one of the hardest. She was losing respect for me.
Yep. That was exactly what happened with LaDawn for me as well. And as part of that, losing respect was, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
How can I be intimate with someone that I don't know? How can I truly connect with someone who won't show me his whole self, where there's secret behaviors going on behind the scenes and I have to find them out? She didn't know, and what was authentic for her. What was this relationship? What was our coupleship? She was not truly able to know and to see all of me. Therefore, she could not do what? She could
Connect with
not
all of
decide
them.
whether to choose me, to
Absolutely.
choose us. I was cutting her off from that right and from that process.
Yes. Well, and those who have listened to us for a while, we talk about this often in Dare to Connect. You'll have heard what I'm going to say next. Over time, Mark and I have had many conversations about this, and between the two of us, we bring something like 30 to 40 years of clinical experience to the table working on this issue, to say nothing of even our own personal experience. And the marriages that we have seen, or the relationships that we have seen that have really imploded, statistically far less of them implode because of the pornography itself or even the related sexual behaviors. Now that will do it, but what's the bigger thing, Mark, that we always talk about? It's exactly what Mark is talking about right now. Is this idea of things become so foreign because trust becomes so low, safety becomes so diminished. The partner no longer feels like either A, they can be, or B, that they even want to be in the relationship anymore because they don't know the person anymore.
Exactly.
I don't know who I'm married to from day to day. I can't stay here. This relationship has become so unstable and so unsafe. That's the thing that's killing. I mean, the other stuff's hurting me too, but I for the sake of me, for the sake of the kid, like I have to get out of this.
Right.
And
Right. And,
so,
and on top of all that, and on top of all the rest of what they already face in their lives as being living in this world, this introduces a whole package of unnecessary conflict and discord
yes.
that we don't need to add to the heap of life. Right. So there's that whole part of it. And you can see that he's exposing the individuals and the coupleship to increasing amounts of risk,
Yeah.
job risk, financial risk, who knows what all, the other kinds of risk. So there's a lot going on here.
Mark and I have both personally worked with men who make more in a year than either one of us will probably make for the better part of our careers, who literally lost everything financially
Yes.
because they were doing exactly what this gentleman is doing. It
Yes,
happens.
it
It
does.
happens. And so anyway, we're not trying to scare anybody straight. We're simply just trying to, kind of introduce you to the full impact of what you're really dealing with here, because we know that many who listening to this episode that need to listen to it are where Mark and I were once upon a time, where you've got all these reasons why you are somehow unique from the other people out there. And that's
Well, and
probably one of the big first steps, right? Is coming to recognize that you're just not.
yeah, and in that vein, let's a couple of addicts, let's talk to the addicts out there, or the ones who are in denial or don't know if they are, or are arguing about it or debating it or whatever. I mean, we let go of the diagnosis issue, the debate, the arguing about what level you're at or you're not, or and let go of all that and just consider a few basic things right now. And there's some questions. Are your actions or your lack of action, are they creating some scenarios? Is it causing any discord or disconnection in your coupleship? There's one question.
Is it distancing you from your partner?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can you authentically say after, I mean, I never could answer yes to this if I was being real. Oh, wow. After that week of porn binging, and it wasn't, and let me just say this. It's not even because Brittany, whether she had caught me or not, can you authentically say after a week of watching porn, or hell, a couple of minutes after watching porn, you're like, oh, thank God I did that. I really feel more connected to my partner now. I mean,
Yeah,
really think about that question for a minute. Can you
after
say that?
yeah, after indulging in porn, do you really feel like you have come out of that experience as your highest, best self?
Yeah.
You
Gosh, I
feel
feel
it
so
true,
much closer now.
authentic. Oh yeah, I feel I'm really at the top of my game now that I just finished that viewing session. Absolutely
Absolutely. Is it
right.
taking me closer, right? Or further from where I want to go as a person?
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of scenario we just proposed, right? If I look back over my last year of porn use, make an honest to God list, guys, if you're listening to this. Make a pros and cons list. How has porn, I know this is going to sound silly the way I phrase it this way, but I mean, be real. If you want to be real, then be real. How has porn, here are the pros and cons. How has porn enhanced my career? Make a list. How has porn put my career at risk? How has porn enhanced my marriage? Make a list. Right? How has porn
How has
diminished,
porn
right?
impacted the way I feel about myself?
Yes.
How has porn helped me develop my talents, abilities, my strengths, my gifts? I mean, that A/B list can be really long. Is it building me up to my truly authentic, whole, amazing self that I want to become, or is it diminishing me and tearing me down further?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
where does it take me?
Well, and kind of the summation question of that is at the end of the day, guys, and this is where we encourage every guy, and we talk about this often in D2C, is to get healthily selfish with themselves a little bit and really just ask the real question. Is where I am at, right? And where my conduct or lack thereof, is it really taking me where I want to go? If I set aside all the other stuff, my spouse or my partner, my job, any of the other things, and I just sit and kind of put myself in a vacuum for a minute and self-assess, am I honestly happier or more connected or any of the things that form up the foundation of happiness for me in life? Am I any of those things more as a result of this or less so?
Yeah.
So
Do I feel proud of myself, those behaviors, or not?
now does that mean it's an addiction or not, depending on your answers? Not necessarily. Who knows what the answer to the addiction question is? But if the answer is yes, this is a problem, then does the addiction question really matter?
Yeah.
Or do you already have the answer that you're really deep down looking for of the need for change?
Is it therefore a good idea to wait around for a quote diagnosis?
Yes.
Yeah. Now
Well,
coming at this from the position of the partner.
yeah, shift gears here a little bit.
Yeah. I
You
as
want
we
to read that first one, Mark, or do you
Yeah,
want me to?
Steve
Okay.
put this first bullet, which I love. It says, for the partner, matching up your own boundaries along with appropriate outcomes for those boundaries. And what do boundaries always do? You'll hear us say this all the time. Your boundaries are not to control him or make him portray certain behaviors or stop certain behaviors. Boundaries are always set around what? This partner's authentic wants and needs, individually and in this coupleship. So has she clearly identified her own authentic wants and needs? Has she set boundaries around those as a safety perimeter around those? And then if he violates those boundaries, which means he's not meeting her authentic wants and needs, does she have outcomes or results or consequences attached to those? Yeah. And has she clearly communicated all of that to him so he knows exactly where he stands?
For sure. Well, and these all these bullet points for the partner, these are kind of the things that you ought to be considering, right? This is sort of an answer to this partner's like, what can I do? Right? She didn't necessarily ask that, but that's kind of what we're answering. What can I do? Mm-hmm. Second step, in addition to what Mark just listed, is to clearly, and that is the emphasis here, because we know how hard this can be for partners to do. And we would also say in whatever manner is safest, or if you're like my wife, Brittany, and you're married to someone who is currently highly reactive, an in-person conversation of what I'm going to suggest here may or may not work, but whether it's in person or written or whatever, the second step is to clearly convey these needs and wants along with the boundaries to your partner, along with the reasons why. But, and here's a key component of this, which I know makes partners uncomfortable sometimes, but this is part of you maintaining your authenticity, is doing this through a different lens than you probably have before, which is the goal here is for you to inform him of what you are thinking, feeling, needing, wanting, etc., and the outcomes of whether he does that or not on your end. But it's not to try to convince him. You're doing your part to be transparent, open, authentic, and real. Whether or not he buys into it is completely up to him. We want to get you out of that moniker of, I've got to somehow get him to agree in order to. A partner's consensus on any issue is not needed for an issue to be valid for the individual.
Right. Yep.
Right. If it's valid for you, it's valid for you. And we'll kind of clarify that here in a couple of bullet points around what that means for compatibility and things like that.
Yeah. And the main objective of a partner here is to be consistent, right? To follow through with you. And we know, boy, do we know how hard that is, Steve. Especially we as addicts were gaslighting our partners. We were using all sorts of manipulation techniques, telling them, yeah, I'm really serious this time, and say, I'm really going to do it, and complying in order to get her to calm down, right? We would follow through with so-called recovery to get her back in a good spot. And then right when we saw that the marriage was no longer in danger or she was mellowed out, then we would go right back to the old behaviors again.
Yes.
So partners need to be consistent with the boundaries and the attached outcomes, and to keep using her voice to express openly, authentically, calmly, and clearly about what she's seeing and feeling of his efforts to change or the lack of effort to change. And how is that impacting her?
Yes.
Here's what I see you doing or not doing, and here's how it's impacting me. Right? That's her side of the street. He gets to decide what to do with that, but she gets to clearly let him know exactly where she's at and they're at.
Yeah. Well, to kind of tie this together, we have one last little sentiment. We thank you all for being here during the podcast. We have one last bullet point for the coupleship. Okay, for the two of you,
Yes.
hopefully who are listening together here today. At the end of the day, and Mark put this together. I love this. This is about collaboration and compatibility, not about control, coercion, or compliance. We could do a whole week worth of Dare to Connect episodes on that statement because I think it's really well said. But it is, at the end of the day, relationships are healthy ones, are relationships in which we have the freedom to choose. They're relationships in which we have the capacity to collaborate, and they're relationships where we have the freedom to openly examine, re-examine, and then make decisions accordingly regarding our compatibility and how we work with one another. The scary thing about choosing a relationship, the only way to really choose, as Mark indicated earlier, is you can only choose something if you also have likewise the option to not choose it. And that's scary. It's scary to consider that. Nobody wants to look at that. That used to scare the hell out of me when I would hear that in therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was just a non-starter, losing my marriage. But in order to really choose Brittany, I had to consider the alternatives and ask myself the questions we've talked about today. Which one am I really happiest with? Because I was trying to, like probably many listening to this podcast, and I know Mark has felt this way too, we addicts, we kind of like to live in this illusion that there's this door number 3 place where somehow I can have it all, and you just can't. Right? These two worlds, this world of connection with a partner and trust and intimacy and all the things that go with it, and the world of connecting with the unreal, the fake, the synthetic, the manufactured, the fantasy. At some point in time, you will come to a crossroads where it's unavoidable, where you will probably rudely be awakened to the idea that these worlds can no longer coexist with one another if they ever could.
Yeah.
And I've got to decide what I want.
They're not compatible. And we can keep kind of trying to do end rounds about that, end runs around that reality, both as guys who, partner who struggles with these issues and one who's in the betrayed place. We can try to skirt around all of it, but at the end of the day, as we said, it all comes down to, are we truly compatible? Are we willing? Do we both want to work on being compatible and collaborating in that joint vision? Or are we just going to continue to engage in denial, control, coercion, compliance, secrecy, discovery? Are we going to get all off in the weeds of all that instead of getting to what it's really about?
Yeah.
Do we want to be with each other? Are we truly compatible? Do we have a common joint vision? And are we willing to collaborate and be on the same team? Am I going to be fighting for you today? Mm-hmm. Isn't that what it comes down to at the end of the day?
Great way to put it.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. We
appreciate it is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional.
Hearts and homes.
If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Weeks away from our 5-year anniversary on this thing. I don't know what we're gonna do that day. Maybe Mark and I don't know. We'll have to show up in costumes or something.
I think we're just almost coinciding with that 5-year anniversary is our 1 millionth download.
Yes, it is. That which is happening even sooner than the anniversry. That's going to happen just in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
We do want to extend an invite to you that you can listen to this podcast anywhere that your podcasts are broadcast on virtually any service on the web. But in addition, there is now, and this will be starting today, actually, as of the date of this podcast, we will now be offering video recordings of our podcasts. So you can stare at us as we say these hard things to you if you would like on our YouTube channel, our Dare to Connect YouTube channel. So we'd invite you to go over there and subscribe. We have a repository that's ever growing of all of our episodes there so far, although they're just the audio version as well. So please come check us out over there, like and subscribe on the channel. We'd love to have you do that. And as always, you're welcome to continue to send us submissions through the PBSE podcast submission form. You can find that at pbsepodcast.com. When you go to that website, it actually links now to our main Dare to Connect website. You just click at the banner at the top of your screen. It'll take you to the PBSE contact form, or, and dare we say the better, more efficient, more helpful option would be to get your butts into Dare to Connect. We'd love to have you come join us, see what all the excitement's about. We are changing the way recovery happens. We are renovating and revolutionizing the way recovery occurs. There are many factors in play in the world right now, economics being one of them. If you are looking for the best bang for your metaphorical buck when it comes to recovery resources, input, feedback, and engagement, you will not find anything better than Dare to Connect. If it existed, we would build that. But this is what there is. So we hope you'll come join us. You can find that and grab your 2-week free trial at daretoconnectnow.com.
All right. Hey, thanks for being with us, everybody. And we'll look to be with you again in our next episode.
Absolutely. Have a great week, guys.